Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Jock and Jill podcast. This is your boy Guru, the mad scientist, here with your girl Joan, Madden, the Gridiron goddess. And we're here to talk about Colin Kaepernick this morning. Colin Kaepernick's going to be taking over the reins of the 49ers as starting quarterback against the Buffalo Bills in Week 6. How you feeling about that, Joan?
Hey, this is something I've been advocating for quite some time. Matter of fact, when they announced that Blaine Gabbert, at the time, I think his record as a starting quarterback was like 9-29.
Yeah.
Something that horrendous. Why was he even in consideration to be a starter? Hello, Colin Kaepernick did play in a Super Bowl almost 4 years ago. And Colin Kaepernick had also went to an NFC championship as well. I don't recall Blaine Gabbert, which I have remixed and started calling him Blame Gabbert. I don't recall him having an ounce of that type of success in Jacksonville. I honestly think that Jacksonville boxed him up, put a bow on him, and shipped him out to San Francisco. Like, they couldn't wait to get rid of him.
Yep.
So I saw no signs of this even being anything but a pipe dream when they announced that he was going to be the starter. I recall my mouth hitting the floor like, you got to be kidding me. Now, I do know some of the reason why they were not starting Kaepernick had a lot to do with his political stance with this whole national anthem thing and things of that nature. But let me tell you this, though. When it comes to on the gridiron and in between those 20-yard lines, between those hash marks, you got to leave the outside stuff alone. Because person's views on certain stuff really doesn't determine the win or loss of a game. Those are just political views. Now, he wasn't breaking any laws by doing such. When you got a kicker like Josh Brown of the Giants who said 2021 domestic violence situations with his own wife only gets suspended for one game. That's violating code. That's breaking law. That's police involved and things like that. Colin Kaepernick was simply taking a stand, a political stand on something. That's no different than voting Democrat or Republican.
Right.
His views on that. What did that have to do with how his performance was going to be on the field? Again, because he was not breaking any laws, okay? He was taking a stance. And this is not about me disagreeing or agreeing with his stance. I'm just talking about him on the football field and what his capabilities were and what he could do for the greater good of the team. I feel like this is something that should have been done. I don't even believe that there should have been any quarterback controversy whatsoever. The guy should have been named a starter back in August. Long overdue. Glad it's finally happened, and I hope that Kaepernick does do as well that I think he's capable of. They are playing a Bills team who has won 3 straight. It is a home game for Buffalo, so that's going to be kind of a disadvantage. You know how I feel about West Coast teams coming to the East. In their mind, physically, they are playing at 10 a.m. But if anybody can handle it, especially the way he's been handling the pressures associated with this, guys receive death threats, for God's sake. And I think that he can handle a 60-minute football game. I don't know what Chip Kelly was thinking, but based off of his history with, like, the Riley Cooper and the N-word dropping, the N-word bombs that were dropped in Philly, and just all of the racial tensions that Deshaun Jackson and LaShawn Shady McCoy have been very vocal about in the locker room, Jeremy Maclin as well. It doesn't surprise me, the move that Chip Kelly made. I was very disappointed, though, because I kind of thought, you know, you're in San Francisco now, new team, new players, fresh start. I kind of thought that he was going to get away from that. Of course, he's a grown man. He's been set in his ways for years. But again, I just kind of thought, like, hey, I'm in a different city, a different coast. Let's start this over, and let's get things off to a great track here, especially considering we've lost so many defensive players. So I think I want to retirement and stuff a couple years ago. So I would have thought that Chip Kelly would have took a little bit of a more different approach in picking who was a better starter for the team. Unfortunately, it took him 6 weeks to decide it, but at least it's not a season loss. It is salvageable, and I'm rooting for Cap all the way on the field and off the field, and I think this is a great start. Well, I guess we'll touch on it when we talk about the game. But I just thought about that McCoy is going to be facing his former coach. So, yeah, we'll definitely talk more about that. But what were your thoughts in them finally naming Kaepernick a starter?
Initially, I felt that Kaepernick was tailor-made for Chip Kelly's up-tempo offense. You know, so I thought that the 49ers were going to be an exciting offense to watch this season with Colin in there. And then all of a sudden, you know, you find out that they're going to start playing Gabbert and you think it's a joke, you know. And I agree with you. McCoy's probably got to be juiced this week to he going up against Chip. He's probably wanting to go out there and light it up, but that's yet to be seen. I guess we're going to wait and see what's going to happen on that. Because, the last time McCoy faced the Eagles with Chip Kelly, he laid a dud. So,
right.
I think that the 49ers, though, back to the 49ers, I think that with Carlos Hyde and, Collins' ability to scramble, I think this offense could, has potential to be exciting. I'm not going to go, as far to say that they're going to be, challenged for the division or anything like that. But, they'll be a team that's pretty annoying to match up against, with the quarterback being able to scramble like that. And then Carlos Hyde, basically making noise every week no matter who they play against. I would say their outlook is much better, with Colin in there, like you said, than with the joke Blaine Gabbert. And, let's just be real. Blaine Gabbert doesn't necessarily deserve to be the starting quarterback in any team in the NFL. I'm shocked at this point he's not out of the league. Like you said, 9-29 record, that doesn't really knock anyone's sock off. I'm sure Arena League football teams would have to think twice about starting the guy.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would say that the 49ers outlook for the rest of the season, I'm not even sure if Colin's going to, get that type of a leash. But, the 49ers outlook, if Colin's going to be the quarterback, the outlook looks a little bit more positive going for the rest of the season. And, wouldn't this be a headline? Wouldn't this be a story? This guy is making all types of headlines, for protesting and for going against the system of mass incarceration and the oppression of African American people in America. And, you got this guy out there as a quarterback winning games.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Now, wouldn't that be a storyline?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's interesting that you bring that up, and I totally agree with you. Like, wow, this would be amazing if that ends up being, if this guy ends up turning into a hero. We've seen a lot of the military even support him, and those are definitely the heroes of our country. So if he could turn this season around for the 49ers and become more heroic as he already has been with some of the people standing by him with his protests and having awareness about the third verse of the national anthem, that would definitely be a great moment for him. And whoever, like these people on the team who don't agree with his stance and stuff, don't do anything stupid like not block for him and drop passes and stuff intentionally to try to make this guy look bad. Because at the end of the day, this loss will still be on your record as a starter as well. So don't do anything stupid or bogus. I'm an advocate for putting personal issues aside. Go out there for 60 minutes and it's about your teammate and your comrades at the moment, the fraternity of it. Get the win, and when you get to the locker room, you can go back to hating each other after that. But the 49ers are currently 1-4. We'll see how it goes with them starting on Sunday to begin week 6. And speaking of 1-4 teams, again, the 49ers have that record at the moment. And when I said those things about Blaine Gabbert's record, I was being generous because I give or take a few of those wins and losses. I was giving you that record before Blaine Gabbert even started any games with the 49ers. He's lost some more. So I think he just may have met double-digit wins in his career as a starter. So, yeah, about that. But nonetheless, going into the 6th week of the NFL season, and 49ers have not had a bye week yet, and they do stand at 1-4 amongst some other teams as well. And with these 1-4 teams, of course, the odds are completely against them as far as making a playoff run at this point in time. But it is possible because, again, this is any given Sunday. We saw Carolina years ago be like 2-8 at the time or something along those lines, 3-8 at the time. They reeled off a string of wins. The Krispy Kreme stock went crazy. Krispy Kreme donuts flying off the shelf because they were winning consistently and went on into the playoffs and won by winning the division. So it is possible. Again, any given Sunday, you know the movie with Willie Beeman. You know how it goes. So we're not going to rule anybody out. These are still professionals here. But with these 1-4 records, a tall feat at hand, we're looking at several teams who are on the outside looking in order to make any Cinderella runs at postseason action. Again, we already talked about the 1-4 49ers. We also have the reigning NFC champions, the Carolina Panthers. Of course, New Orleans is 1-3 at the moment because they've had their bye, which happened just this past week 5. The Chicago Bears are 1-4. We have the San Diego Chargers at 1-4. Jacksonville's 1-3. That's another team that's not 1-4 just due to the fact that they had their bye this past weekend. The Miami Dolphins are 1-4. The New York Jets are 1-4, and of course Cleveland's 0-5. We don't want to count them out. Maybe they have a shot as well. They're only one game behind those guys. So we'll include them in as well. But Guru, do you perhaps see any of these teams with the snowball's chance in hell of making it to the playoffs despite this 1-4 and 1-3 and 0-5 start.
Don't we all just love those Cinderella stories? You know, when the magic slippers ends up getting you the beautiful groom, and you know you end up making it to the ball. I don't always subscribe to that ideology or logic, but you know I'm gonna say that one Cinderella team still has a chance of being a playoff team this season, and that Cinderella team, unfortunately, is not really a Cinderella team, but it's a team that went to the Super Bowl last season. It's going to be the Carolina Panthers. They're 1-4 right now in a division where the Atlanta Falcons seem to have control of the division, and I gotta admit, they were a slept-on team. Mm-hmm. You know, not because of Matt Ryan, but because of the defense. You know, when you look at the defense and you look at some of the names they've compiled, some of the free agent acquisitions they've made, under the radar, might I add, you know.
Right.
I had to go and look at this roster to figure out why this team's winning. You know, and this team is winning because they have a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball. I'm not even talking about the offensive side of the ball because, I mean, those are the knowns. You know, the knowns are Julio Jones and Freeman and, you know, Coleman and those guys. Those are the known guys. The defense has guys that you might want to go check out on. Back to the Carolina Panthers. I do think that the Carolina Panthers are going to reel off some games. I think that they're going to, you know, pull it together and start playing better football. I mean, to me, I just find it hard to believe that Cam's going to just wallow in his own pig's pen this season and keep losing these games. You know, I think that he's going to come back a motivated, refreshed Cam after this concussion protocol, and the Carolina Panthers are going to start playing better football going forward. You know, now, mind you, they did start the season against elite. You know, I mean, this is the cream of the crop defenses, you know, in the Minnesota Vikings and the Denver Broncos. That's two of the games that they lost. Any quarterback in the NFL could have lost those games. That's including the Aaron Rodgers or even the great Tom Terrific. So I don't hold that against Cam too much, that he lost those games against Minnesota and against Denver. And then they just lost against Tampa, but Cam wasn't playing. So that's really one loss that's only attributed to Cam's record at this moment.
And they lost to the current NFC champions, too, the Atlanta Falcons, who have beat Oakland and who have beat Denver. So that's not a bad loss either, with the way that Atlanta's showing that they're able to play as well. So, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Right. They lost to the Falcons, and that was a really bad loss in Atlanta. The fact that it was in Atlanta, you know, any team can beat any team on any given Sunday on their home field. You know, that's not the worst loss in the world either. You know, like you said, considering how hot Atlanta has started off. And the talent that's on Atlanta's defense is very slept on. They've got some guys on that roster that were good on other teams, and they've managed to compile all those guys at one time in one offseason and kind of go under the radar. But, yeah, I think that, you know, the Carolina Panthers are going to string together some wins. They're going to get some of that, you know, confidence back, you know, when Cam comes back, hopefully next week. I think the Carolina Panthers still are a playoff team. You know, right now, with them being down and out, you know, you're hearing commentators and people saying that, you know, that it's over for them, they're done. They played against two of the elite defenses in the whole league, you know, with the Vikings and the Broncos. Every team's not going to be able to defend Cam Newton that well. So I think that brakes need to be pumped immediately.
And yeah, piggybacking off of what you said regarding Atlanta slept on defense, I mean, they also have the Rookie of the Month for September in Jones, the linebacker there, who's been making significant and early progress as well. So you're absolutely right. I'm going to agree with you. I think Carolina will be able to put together some wins for the reasons that you've indicated, with the tough season that they've started out with the issues with Cam. Maybe he is all right. I mean, after all, he was caught riding a scooter without his helmet, so maybe he will bounce back. I mean, maybe that's a sign of greater things to come. Like, maybe he is getting better. So I agree with you on that. I also don't rule Carolina out because I've seen Carolina do this before. I've seen where they said Ron Rivera is on the hot seat, should be fired. I've seen Carolina way below 500 before, and here they are again. So this is familiar territory with them, and they're an experienced team and such, because the roster really hadn't changed that much then a few years ago, before they ran off that string of wins and finished 7-8-1 to go on and win the division and make it to the playoffs. So I agree with you on Carolina. I'm also going to still stick my neck out for the couple of teams that I picked. I didn't really pick the Jets necessarily to win the division of the AFC East. But I did pick them to contest the Patriots. And I still somewhat stick by that. I understand that they are 1-4. But I still like Todd Bowles. Of course, he has some questionable decisions that he made against the Steelers, but that is my Steelers, so maybe he was panicking and had desperation. I don't know, but I respect what he did. I don't necessarily agree with it, but sometimes you have to be ballsy like that. Of course, it didn't work in his favor, and people were questioning him and even calling for a couple of people even called for his job, but that's way too dramatic. I still like the Jets because the Jets have only played one divisional game, and they won it. They have 5 more to go. So that could kind of be like some make or break as well. Also, the reason why the Jets are losing is fixable stuff. Honestly, it is. If they had lost like a whole bunch of key players for the season kind of thing, or somebody was suspended or anything like that, then sure. But Ryan Fitzpatrick just needs to control his turnovers. And Darrelle Revis, he needs to quit having players have Mai Tais out there on his island. I know he's had some injuries and things of that nature, but I think his pride's been hurt. I think that it's starting to be a reflection of like, yo, I got to get back right. You know, I think his pride will kind of take over, and I think Darrelle Revis will do a lot better as we get closer to the second half of the season upon us. So I'm going to still give the Jets the benefit of the doubt here, because plus they also just came off of a 10-6 record last year. So I cannot completely rule them out. They have Matt Forte, too. They went and added Matt Forte to the running game, and he's been doing a really tremendous job so far this season. They went and got Clady on the offensive line. So, again, a lot of the flaws that the Jets have right now are very fixable. Just need some tweaking. Nobody's really out for the season. Nobody's really detrimental to the team right now. So I'm not counting out the Jets. I also picked Jacksonville to win the division. They're 1-3, and, again, that's because they had a bye week. The leader of the AFC South right now is 3-2. Which is the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans team without J.J. Watt for the rest of the season, might we remind you. That division is so wide open. It took a 9-7 record for the Texans to win last year, so you don't have to do much in this division. Jacksonville has played close, and with the 3 losses that they've had, 2 of them were very close games. Of course, they got blown out by the Chargers when they traveled to San Diego, but the other 2 losses were very close against Green Bay, but then they went over to London, and they got a divisional win against the Colts. So with Jacksonville having this 1-3 record, they're 1-0 in the division. They've only had 1 divisional game, and they won it. So that's off to a good start. It took them going over to London, flying abroad, and not being domestic to get that. But they won that game, went to their bye week. So maybe the rest will help them have a string of wins. The 3 losses, of course, they got their doors blown off by traveling to San Diego, but where there have been some times that, like, San Diego's defense has saved them, this was all Phillip Rivers in this particular game. They had absolutely no answer for him, and he's picked apart their secondary every time that he's played them. I thought it was going to be a little bit closer this time with them having Tashawn Gibson, but I was definitely fooled. But with the other 2 losses that Jacksonville has had, they've been very close games. Less than 1 possession loss to Baltimore, and the same with Green Bay. They've been in the thick of things in these games. And again, having that 1-0 divisional record so far against a Colts team that Andrew Luck got the big contract for, and he hasn't really done too much to stand by that. Again, the division is wide open. The Titans are having coaching issues. The thing about Houston is very much touch and go. Will Fuller's unpredictable. The defense is unpredictable. Osweiler, we still haven't really seen the Osweiler that got the big franchise contract. So that's still undecided as well. So I'm not counting Jacksonville out. I'm still riding with them as my champions to win the AFC South. Duval. And shout out to Antonio Johnson as well. Speaking of Jacksonville, who lets me on his radio show every week. So I'm still riding with y'all, Antonio, no doubt. And I'm glad that all the residents that I've spoken to in Jacksonville are doing fine and recuperating successfully in the aftermath of Hurricane Matthew. Another team that I'm looking at with the 1-4 record that has a possibility to win the division is the 49ers. I mean, because if they're going to stick with Kaepernick, I know that there's been a tremendous amount of changes since they went to the NFC Championship one year, lost to the Giants, and then went back and lost to the Ravens in the Super Bowl. I know that there's been some significant changes since then, but Kaepernick has shown me time and time again he's an underdog and he's a winner. And the fact that they're making him the starter starting on Sunday, and I'm not necessarily saying they're going to definitely win Sunday, again, because they're traveling from West Coast to East Coast, playing at 1 p.m. against a team that has won 3 straight. And mentally, by playing at 1 p.m. on the East Coast, just they're thinking physically and mentally it's 10 a.m. That may play a factor, but regardless, I still believe in Kaepernick to be a leader and help this team. Reason being, this is not the NFC West that was as potent as it has been a few years ago. You got the Seahawks hobbling with the injuries to Russell Wilson. It seems like their running game still hasn't all the way been the same with the departure and early retirement of the Beast. Also, with the offensive line, that trade with the Jimmy Graham, it's not all the way right. They lost Russell Okung as well. So they're still not the Seattle team that we remember that won that Super Bowl against Denver a few years ago. So they're not all the way quite right. Then Arizona, they've just had a bulldozer of a win against San Francisco recently. But before that, it was still a lot of looming questions about them. They're not the same Arizona team that played in the NFC Championship game last year.
Not by any means.
Then the Rams. They were the division leader. But the fact that they just lost this past Sunday and the fact that Seattle has had their bye and the Rams haven't is the reason why Seattle is classified as the division leader at this moment. It's like that half-game lead just due to the fact that Seattle has one less loss, but they played one less game. So this is a Rams team that even though they had the division lead before this past Sunday, and again with that difference in Seattle not having a game, this was a Rams team that had been winning games, but they weren't like impressive. They weren't like Tom Brady was against Sunday against Cleveland. They were not very impressive in these wins.
Their defense, though, is super nasty.
No, their defense is, but still, it's not threatening. Like when you see,
it's very threatening.
No, that's not what I'm saying. When you see St. Louis on the schedule, they're not threatening the team.
Oh yeah.
So when you see this team on the schedule, it's not like you're scared to play the Rams. They are a beatable team. Granted, like you said, their defense is definitely nasty. But as a whole collective unit, this is not a team that really scares you. Like, oh, gosh, I'm not looking forward to playing them. They're going to embarrass us. They're going to demolish us. They're going to dismantle us. You don't get that from the Rams. Right. So that's wide open, too. So those are the 1-4 teams that I'm looking at. And 1-3, again, Jacksonville having that bye. Those are the teams that I'm looking at to possibly still have really, really snowball chances in hell of sneaking in the playoffs, even if they have to back up into it. But we'll definitely keep our eyes on those guys and the other teams as well. Now, on the flip side, all right, so on the contrast, we were talking about the teams that may have the Cinderella run in getting to the playoffs despite having such a big hole to climb out of. We're going to take a look at the division leaders right now through week 5 who have a chance to possibly miss the playoffs, even though they're riding high right now and currently are the division leaders. These are some teams that we think might be on the decline as we get closer to the second half of the season. The 8 teams, the 4 teams in the NFC divisions and the 4 teams in the AFC divisions, the current leaders in the NFC North are the lone undefeated team in the NFL with a 5-0 record out of the NFC North, the Minnesota Vikings. Then in the NFC South, we have the 4-1 Falcons. In the NFC East, we have the division leader as the Dallas Cowboys, again with a 4-1 record. And just coming off of a bye week, they had their bye week 5, the Seattle Seahawks of the NFC West. In the AFC, current leaders in the AFC North are the Steelers at 4-1. In the AFC South, we have the 3-2 Texans. In the AFC East, we have the 4-1 New England Patriots, who of course will be playing the rest of the season with starting quarterback Tom Brady, effective as of week 5. And out of the AFC West, we have the Oakland Raiders, who are 4-1. Now, also just want to point out the Denver Broncos are 4-1 as well. But where the Raiders have an advantage, where they have the edge on being the division leaders, is because they're 1-0 in the division. And the Broncos have not played any divisional games. So that is the reason why, again, the tiebreaker boils down to the Raiders being the leader. So out of these 8 teams, again, these are, to reiterate, division leaders. Guru. We just talked about the 1-4 and 0-5 teams that may possibly be able to make a playoff run and have a Cinderella run. But which one of these, out of these 8 division leaders, one or several, might fall from grace and despite having this strong start, be sitting at home and couch potatoing it come January when the postseason starts?
The Houston Texans are a fool's gold team. They're not going to win this division, and they're not going to the playoffs. I'm going to take the Houston Texans as a team not to make the playoffs this season. I think that, they've been winning some games, but they've also been getting by some teams that they probably are supposed to get by, based on the contracts that they've paid out on offense, Brock Osweiler and Lamar Miller. I just don't think that this team is as good as their record suggests at this point. 3-2. I mean, they barely got by the Tennessee Titans, the week before last. That game probably came down to the Titans' coaching blunders. This past week, Marcus Mariota went out there and threw 3 touchdown passes and ran for 1. The Tennessee Titans are going to start reeling off some games. I think that division is going to be a tough division to win coming down to the end of the season. I don't think the Texans have the best team in that division at this point. And, likewise, what you said about Jacksonville, I think that Jacksonville even has more talent on their team and has a better quarterback than the Houston Texans. As a matter of fact, I think all 3 other quarterbacks are probably better than Brock Osweiler. They're going to be challenging all season to try to keep the lead on that division. I don't think Lamar Miller is that great. I don't think he's ever been that great, and I think that is going to show because they're going to end up missing the playoffs this season.
Interesting. I'm definitely concurring. As we just talked about in the previous segment, I picked the Jacksonville Jaguars do ball to win that division, so I'm going to agree with you on the Texans. But another one I'm kind of monitoring, I'm not completely sold on, and this is to be determined off of one decision and one decision only. Jerry Jones. If you pull that plug on Dak Prescott when Tony Romo gets healthy, you're not going to the playoffs. Once again, you're not going to the playoffs. If you base your season off of putting Tony Romo back in just because he's healthy and just because the doctor said so, you're not going to get any postseason action. Right now, you are the current division leaders. I don't know why this is not ringing a bell. This should be setting off alarms for you. You've won 4 straight with Dak Prescott as your starting quarterback. Do not break that chemistry up. So if you change the record on this, you're not going to the playoffs. We all know what your record is. We all know, and I don't mean in a numeric fact, because I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but just based off of season for season, we've seen it. This is a constant script. This is a movie. We've seen it before. We know how it's going to end. Come December, Dallas, with Tony Romo in your starting lineup, you decline. That's the final stretch right there. That's when you really want to be kind of winning games instead of losing them. But history shows that you do not do well in December with Tony Romo as your starting quarterback. Do not go there this year, especially if Dak is still healthy, which I think he will be, and if Dak is still winning games, which I also think that he will be. So don't do this. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting home, enjoying the game in the comforts of your own home with some popcorn or some hot chocolate or something by then. So I'm not saying that that's going to happen right now, because as long as you keep Dak in, I really believe that you guys should be fine. But otherwise, that's another team that I'm looking at to fall from grace and to be sitting at home in January. I'm looking at the teams also whose mascots are in the form of poultry. I'm a little bit concerned for the Seahawks, too, which that's the team that you and I both picked to win the division. But that division is very much wide open. And I'm looking at the health of Russell Wilson with this. And, of course, the quarterback change for the 49ers, the Rams defense, and I also trust Bruce Arians. These are all divisional factors here. So it's not wide open for Seattle. They better be very, very careful as we go through. And now they're coming off of a bye week. So hopefully that helped them get healthy. I don't know, Russell Wilson, if you were spending a lot of time with Sierra or whatever the case may be, but I hope you were spending a lot of time in the film room, because you almost lost to Miami at home in the opening week. A late fourth quarter push is what saved you. So you're beatable at home. One time it was very hard to go up in Seattle. But yeah, Miami almost beat you at home. And it's been shown there was once upon a time where Seattle didn't lose games at home. But they have recently. I mean, Carolina has gone up there to beat you. Arizona has gone up there to beat you. So this is not automatic anymore. So Seattle better be very, very careful. They just have a half-game lead over Los Angeles. And, again, that's because of the bye week. So, yeah, I'm not 100% sold on Seattle. I still believe in my pick. But the way the powers that be, how the stars are starting to align, Seattle, this is not an automatic for you. So be very careful. And the Falcons, even though they're 4-1 and they have huge separation with Tampa being 2-3, so they have 2-game lead right now. I've seen Atlanta start off 5-0 and 6-0 before. Recent history with Matt Ryan as a quarterback. Of course, at the time, Mike Smith was the coach, and now it's Dan Quinn. So maybe that might be the difference. And they have a pass rush now. Ta-da! Presenting the Atlanta Falcons pass rush. But yeah, who knew that was coming? But again, because I've seen you guys melt down after being 5-0 and after being 6-0 and not making it to the playoffs, that's the sole reason why I'm not 100% sold. Of course, you're playing lights out right now. You have some dominant wins, traveling to Oakland and winning, traveling to the Super Bowl champions and winning. So you get kudos from me on that. But again, I'm solely basing the reason why you might not win the division off of your recent blunder and starting off 5-0 and 6-0 before. And now, speaking of Atlanta, while we're on that subject, of course, Atlanta has had a lights out wide receiver in Julio Jones. I mean, I'm sure Carolina Panthers are still having nightmares of what Julio Jones did to their secondary, and that's been a couple of weeks ago now. But again, I'm sure that's a story that is replaying. It's a nightmare still replaying in their mind with what Julio Jones did. So in talking about Julio Jones, with him having such a terrific start, let's keep it with the wide receivers. At this moment, Guru, 5 weeks into the season, who are the top 5 receivers in the NFL? And I'm sure you're going to pick Julio Jones as one of those, right?
I'm going to give you top 5 in no particular order. That is Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, Julio Jones, Brandon Marshall, and Mr. Showtime himself, Michael Crabtree from the Oakland Raiders.
You put Michael Crabtree in your top 5, but now you said in no particular order. One of these guys also has to be a number 1 receiver for you. Which one? Is it Crabtree?
I'm probably going to go with Antonio Brown. I mean, teams have been figuring out ways to kind of contain him this year, but it's just been opening up things for Coates and the other guys. That's all it's really been doing. I still think Antonio Brown's the best wide receiver in the football. Crabtree is definitely on their level. I definitely believe he's playing on their level this year. And
that's interesting. I'm the Steelers fan here, but I'm not picking Antonio Brown as my number 1 receiver. Again, those are my boys, but I'm going to separate my heart out of this and not be biased. But I'll let you keep Antonio Brown as your number 1 receiver. Now, he's definitely in my top 5. To round out my top 5, again, Antonio Brown of the Steelers, Brandon Marshall definitely of the Jets, Julio Jones of the Falcons. I'm still looking at Odell of the Giants. This guy still came in his rookie year, 12 games only. He was injured the first 4 weeks of the season, and he was the offensive rookie of the year with just 12 games. I think that he's kind of had like some emotional setbacks because people have kind of gotten in his head and stuff. But see, if Odell was a little bit more like an Andre Johnson kind of receiver, people really wouldn't bother him that much. Or like a Marvin Harrison type receiver, people really wouldn't bother him that much. But you kind of make yourself a target. That's why you're getting bothered. With seeing what that guy did Sunday night in Minnesota, just the awareness of being able to keep that toe in and not drop that heel on that touchdown, because if he would have dropped that heel, that would not have been a touchdown. He's still a guy who bails Eli out several times. Just his agility and just being able to catch some of the passes that he does. He's a magnificent wide receiver, and I'd still put him in top 5. Not necessarily number 2. I am naming those first 4 in no particular order. Again, Antonio Brown, Brandon Marshall, Odell, and Julio Jones. But my number 1 wide receiver in the league right now, despite the ugly loss that they had against the Cowboys, is A.J. Green. And this is very big of me to say as such because he plays for the Bengals, and that is my divisional rival. And I feel like if the Cincinnati Bengals are 14-2, them two better come from us. I do not like the Cincinnati Bengals. And another reason why I don't like the Bengals is because they just cut Brandon Tate earlier this season. And he's from Burlington like I am. And we went to the same high school, which is Cummins High School. So, yeah, that left another sour taste in my mouth. But anyway, A.J. Green gets my nod for number 1 receiver currently in the NFL. I've just seen him do so much in being double covered. He still gets his numbers. Sometimes he's been able to catch passes with triple coverage, being surrounded and swarmed like that. And the guy has just really been able to make some magnificent moves. This is a guy that I trust because he's very tall and lanky. He can stretch the field but open up the playbook, like if you want to do some fade routes, if you will, as well. See, Antonio Brown really can't do that. Not really. He's not guaranteed to win that matchup. Antonio Brown's very fast and a nifty wide receiver. He gets that separation. If you try to jam him, he does an excellent job of running routes. But Antonio Brown's not really necessarily like the best blocker. Again, nor does every matchup favor him. A lot of times the reason why he wins those matchups is strictly because of his speed and him being able to juke and be elusive. Does not have much to do with size necessarily. So that gives A.J. Green another advantage as well. That's not a knock on Antonio Brown, but that's just a bonus for Green. So again, I will give A.J. Green my number 1 of the top 5 honors for wide receivers currently in the NFL.
I definitely like those picks, and I definitely slept on AJ Green. It seemed like I left him out of the pick somewhere. To me, I definitely like him better than Brandon Marshall. But I mean, I'll stick with my picks.
Well, thank you, Guru. That means a lot coming from you. I mean, you're the mad scientist, but I understand the Raiders are having a lot of success now. And, of course, you were going to be biased and pick with your heart and go with your boy Crabtree because right now, Michael Crabtree of the Oakland Raiders is looking like Michael Crabtree with DirecTV, and Michael Crabtree with the 49ers look like Michael Crabtree with cable. So I understand why you picked Crabtree. I'm honestly a little surprised that maybe you didn't think a little bit more about Amari Cooper, too. But maybe just not yet. Maybe that's the thing about him. Yeah, not yet. And Crabtree, of course, is the veteran there. But speaking of wide receivers, and your number one pick of the top 5 wide receivers, you mentioned Antonio Brown. And Antonio Brown has been in the news quite a bit here recently. He was injured at the end of last season. He was on Dancing with the Stars over the summer. He came back healthy. Some of the questionable end zone celebrations, the twerking, the MC Hammer pumps and bumps, things like that. But more recently and more interestingly, he's been in the news this week because, if you recall, maybe about 2 Sundays ago, the legendary Arnold Palmer, the golf legend that is, Arnold Palmer, you guys have had one of those drinks in your life, and it's not an alcoholic drink, it's tea and lemonade, but nonetheless, you've had some Arnold Palmers in your life, so the guy's legendary, he's got drinks named after him. Died in Pittsburgh, again, a couple of Sundays ago, and of course, Antonio Brown, playing for the Steelers, is a legendary guy. He had some Arnold Palmer cleats, and the NFL is very strict about the uniforms and everyone looking alike and things of that nature. I mean, you can wear those kind of cleats like for practice, for example. When it comes to the field, they have to be like Nike cleats, and that's part of the reason why I know a lot of people were really trying to understand why were the Yeezys banned? Why were the Yeezy Adidas cleats banned from the NFL? But that's because the NFL doesn't have a deal with Adidas. It had nothing to do with like they can't stand Kanye. They might have had a little something to do with it, but on paper, it is technically and solely because of the fact that they can't make money off of it. Their deal is with Nike and Under Armour. I forgot about that, but they have no tie. They have no ties financially, contract wise, to Adidas. So that's why you can't wear those. But going back to Antonio Brown's cleats, the Arnold Palmer cleats, those were good to go, no issues. And I get that, like, he was paying homage to a guy who had just died. It was like that was like newsworthy. That's what was going on. He died in Pittsburgh, things of that nature. But again, that was a go. Arnold Palmer, of course, is a Caucasian man also. Let's point that out. And that's not to be racist. That's just to tie it into the next part of this story. Now, Antonio Brown has some Muhammad Ali cleats in the most recent game. Another legendary guy, another great, who died earlier this year, but not as recently as Arnold Palmer, and the timeliness of it was not the same. I'll give you that. But we all know that Muhammad Ali is of African-American descent. But Antonio Brown got fined for those cleats, not the Arnold Palmer ones as well, not one or the other, not both or neither, but not fined for the Palmer cleats, fined for the Muhammad Ali cleats. And that brings about some head-scratching, some questions that loom here. Why was it that he was fined? Was it the obvious reason, you think, Guru? Because Muhammad Ali's descendant versus Palmer's descendant? Why was he fined for the Muhammad Ali cleats and not the Arnold Palmer cleats?
The NFL is suggesting that they fined him because the whole team is supposed to wear the shoes, or the same shoes. They're all supposed to wear the matching shoes, and it did not allow Peyton Manning to wear the black cleats, when he wanted to wear them at one point.
Right, in honor of Johnny Unitas.
Right. So that's the NFL's argument. My opinion is that, there was some bias, that was involved there because, like you said, they did not speak up when he wore the Arnold Palmer cleats. They didn't speak up on that. Now the NFL has, allowed for week 13 to be the week of the theme, where you can support, whatever organization you want to support for that week, with shoes and bands and whatever else. But it's ironic that they chose to hit him with the hefty fine, over the Ali shoes, and did not speak a word, on the Arnold Palmer shoes. So, I mean, I think you mentioned that they have a deal with Nike. The Muhammad Ali cleats were Nikes. They just had, Muhammad Ali's picture on them. I do think that, there was some element of bias at play there. But, the NFL is a real interesting league, like you said, because they're looking at money. They're looking at dollar signs. They can't capitalize off players having their own opinions and having their own. They can't really capitalize and monetize off of players marketing themselves and their own personalities.
Right.
The fact that players' personalities are so suppressed, I think that, you know, that's an element of why Antonio Brown and why other athletes, you know, choose to wear flashy shoes, choose to wear colorful wristbands and things like that stand out from the color of their team's uniforms and stuff and such, you know, because they're just being themselves. They're like, well, I'm still me. I play in the NFL, but, you know, we all have on helmets. All you get to see is our eyes. We all have on uniforms with, you know, the same uniforms with the same colors. Everything is the same. So, you know, there's nothing to, you know, separate us as individuals. For a player like Antonio Brown, who's an elite player, might I add, you know, he's probably feeling like he wants to separate himself as an individual. Like, listen, I'm Antonio Brown. I'm not just a Steeler.
Right.
Which is, it makes sense. You know, I think that the NFL definitely, you know, they need to, you know, to me, with their no fun policies and things like that, they definitely need to make a rule for one for all or all for one. You know, like, to me, they need to figure out whether they're going to allow things or whether they're not going to allow things, you know?
Right.
That's what it comes down to me.
And it definitely needs to be consistent across the board. And so pretty much what you're saying is, had Muhammad Ali died during football season instead of Arnold Palmer dying during football season, maybe it would have been okay because it was for that week. Is that maybe would have been the difference as well?
I don't think that's the case because Muhammad Ali was a hero in the black community. He was not necessarily a hero everywhere.
Okay.
You know, obviously, you know, guys who go against the system, who rage against the system, you know, are not going to be looked at as heroes to people who support the system. You know, and you got owners who are billionaires, CEO, commissioner, you know, Roger Goodell, who works for these billionaires. Their interests are aligned with the system that subjugates people. It makes sense when you do the math or you do the knowledge on it, you know, that they would want to, you know, control the image of every individual in the NFL, considering that that's just the way things are in everyday life in general. You know, you want to control and subjugate, you know, the people. You know, the system is designed to do that. So, and it's funny that, you know, we're talking about this in sports where, you know, that's supposed to be something that is not, you know, like, that's not a problem. That's not some. Sports is the closest thing to a non-discriminatory society, you know, because you have players of all races, ethnicities, nationalities, all coming together, fighting for a cause. You think that because of that element in football, that, you know, that's not something that they deal with. But, you know, when you look at the people who are controlling the game, it is the same setup.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Sports, to me, is sports, love, and music. All of that just translates the same message all across the board. You know, you don't have to, the common goal, like with sports, to win the game, to be a fan, to enjoy, to cheer, to laugh, to high-five your fellow fans, music, to dance, to connect. Certain lyrics of a song might resonate for you, and that is across the board, internationally and domestically. And then love, same thing. So I totally agree with you. Like, there should be non-discriminatory policies and attitudes and morals with those three things in particular. So I agree with you there, and that is something that I've been speaking on about. Like, I get with the NFL. Well, I won't even just single out the NFL. I get it. Like, you want the uniformity. I get that. But me being a sports lover, a sports fan, but I've also done journalism. I'm an award-winning sports writer. I've covered sports in like Indiana, Tennessee, Illinois, and North Carolina. So I get the uniformity policy of it. But at the same time, these were people who were Antonio Brown before football, during football, and still will remain Antonio Brown afterwards. Antonio Brown is not a player. That's not who he is. That's what he is. But I feel like they should be allowed to show personality. They should be able to, if he wants to pay homage to Arnold Palmer, if he wants to pay homage to Muhammad Ali, which you've actually just proved my point that maybe it is obvious, that maybe it is because it was the black hero. But that's why I asked you that, because I was wondering Like, would they maybe have allowed it if Muhammad Ali had died during football season? Maybe it wouldn't have been a big issue. But you're right. Maybe it does have more to do with Muhammad Ali being this vocal black hero and Arnold Palmer wasn't. So that could definitely be the difference there. But going back again to the uniformity of it, I still feel like these players should be allowed to show some personality. If you do want to say that, and I agree with you, and I've said this, like, I don't know if you guys have heard a couple of the interviews that I've had on radio and TV, but when I was on the Atlanta interview specifically, I was talking about, like, with T.O. with the Sharpie. When T.O. did that, I was like, okay, this is probably going to be, they're going to change that celebration thing. And it was because, T.O. was showing personality. He grabbed the pom-poms and things like that, but they didn't make money off of that. Like, Sharpie and Sharpie, T.O. and Sharpie got money off of that. So they kind of interjected there. Joe Horn grabbing the cell phone. Whatever cell phone company that was, they probably made money off of. They probably activated all kinds of phone plans. But the NFL didn't. And Joe Horn got money off of that because he was showing personality. So when I saw T.O. do that with the Sharpie, I knew that they were going to change rules then. And again, it has everything to do with the monetary value of what the NFL can make off of it. It's sad but true, but that is the business of it. And we're dealing with a conglomerate corporation, and that's just the way that they roll. But I'll tell you what, though. When I become commissioner of the NFL in about 10 or 15 years, and don't laugh, if you think because I'm a woman it's not possible, or again, I'm looking at this as a 10 to 15 year feat, just look up Condoleezza Rice's involvement of when they tried to make her NFL commissioner. Okay, if you think I'm playing like a woman can't do it, because they reached out to her, but it was during the time with the Paul Tagliabue transition to Roger Goodell. We were kind of dealing with a bunch of stuff with Iraq and 9/11 and stuff like that. So Condoleezza Rice, she gracefully declined because she was needed more in the political forefront with all of the stuff that we were going through at that time versus her being needed in the NFL. Again, think I'm lying, look it up. So it's not impossible, but I'm going to get with her and we're going to work this out. But 10 to 15 years, I'm going to change that. And one of the things I'm going to bring back is the touchdown celebrations. That's something that's not guaranteed. And they say, act like you've been there before. I get that. Yeah, act like you've been there before. And by that, to me, that means don't do the same celebration that you did last time. That's how I feel. Right. I want to see another celebration. I want to see something different. So I'm bringing that back. Right. Don't worry. I'm going to have a PowerPoint plan and the reason why I'm going to have it all laid out. Okay, don't you worry. It's going to happen. Give me about 10 to 15 years again. There's a lot of things I'm going to change. Like with this monetary stuff, why can't people still show their personality? Like, for example, if Antonio Brown wants to twerk in the end zone, so be it. If it's an elongated celebration, so be it. What I may do, or like I'll even be a little bit more specific because a product was involved. T.O. with the Sharpie. Instead of being mad at T.O. for pulling out the Sharpie, why not go make Sharpie a sponsor? Why not be like every Sharpie that's sold, the NFL gets 10% off of it? And then T.O. gets money off of it. Don't bully it. Like, just don't be a bully to be like, no, he can't do it at all. How about let's all work together? Right. And that's going to be my MO with this stuff. Again, I don't want to give out all my plans. I got some stuff kind of wrote down. I'm definitely do a lot of visualizing. But yeah, 10 to 15 years, if you guys can be patient, still enjoy the NFL as much as you do, I'm going to make some moves. I don't know. There might be another commissioner between Roger Goodell and me, but you can go ahead and just sketch my name, go ahead and ink it on in at some point in time. I don't have any specific dates right now, but again, y'all might as well go on ahead and make a little signature stuff of NFL Commissioner Latasha Miles, because it's coming. You can trust and believe that. Nothing but death can keep me from it, in my color purple voice. So yeah, it's coming, definitely. This was a special night last night. I hope that many of you got the chance to watch ESPN with the documentary, The Special, with ESPN, The Undefeated, speaking with our president. President Obama will be out of the White House. We don't really know who's to come yet, but effective January 2007. So he's got about 3 more months in the White House. And ESPN, The Undefeated, and shout outs to Marcus Matthews as well with this. But they actually had a great special with President Barack Obama last night. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because that was done here in Greensboro, North Carolina, where we reside. At North Carolina A&T University, and I'm sure that you all saw a lot of things on ESPN about all the coverage associated with it yesterday. But again, hope that you enjoyed the program last night. I don't have the schedule for it, but I know that there'll be several reruns and probably links for it. But definitely make sure that you check it out. That means a lot to us. That's very significant for us here in the Greensboro, North Carolina area, as President Barack Obama visited our city yesterday. So that's huge. Again, make sure you enjoy that. And shout outs once again to Marcus Matthews. I salute you, brother. Big things that you're doing there. And we need to talk. I got some great ideas and some stuff for you to get you some more checks and some executive producing rights and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely hit me up. So the Guru, speaking of A&T Homecoming is coming up. You trying to do some filming, people, they got parades and stuff coming up, talent shows, things like that. They may need some videographers, take some pictures, things of that nature. Tell the people how they can get a hold of you.
Check me out. Like us at Cold Coffee TV on Facebook. Follow us at Cold Coffee TV on Twitter. Subscribe to us at Cold Coffee TV on YouTube. Run with us or run from us, baby. You know the motto.
Hey, and it's for me, your girl Latasha Miles, aka Joan Madden, the Gridiron Goddess. I can be located on Facebook at Latasha Joan Madden Miles. Again, Latasha Joan Madden Miles on Facebook. On Twitter and IG at she_SPN. Again, at she_SPN on Twitter and IG. On YouTube, the channel is SheSPN the Network. Again, that's SheSPN the Network on YouTube. And I have a book out entitled When Football Season Turns You Into His Side Chick, The Ultimate Survival Guide for Relationships and Households during football season. And it's available right now on Amazon.com and CreateSpace.com. So definitely go out and get your copy, all right? So we appreciate you guys again so much for tuning into another installment of the Jock and Jill podcast. Thanks so much. Especially we have new listeners on SoundCloud. We greatly appreciate you all as well. So continue to support us. Any of the things that we've asked you to support with the book, with the recordings and the editing, the Guru makes beats and things like that. Definitely reach out to us. We appreciate it. All of the support that we're receiving. All right. Thanks again for tuning in to the Jock and Jill podcast. We'll be back next time, and we're out.